This is the reality we live in. More and more farmers barely break even at the end of the year. Floods, droughts, fertilizer prices exploding, grain prices collapsing. Every year we lose more farms. And if we continue like this, food security becomes a real problem.
I've never seen a crisis like this. Without intervention, we're talking about generational loss of farmers.
In the last year, farm bankruptcies here in Arkansas have nearly doubled.
Modern farming practices like tilling, heavy fertilizer use, and pesticides are damaging soil, contaminating water, and ultimately draining our global resources.
But there is a solution: regenerative farming.
Now, this farm couldn't sustain 17 head of cattle before I would have to feed hay in August. I started moving cattle every day. Now, where we are today, we run about 100 to 120 head of grass-fed, grass-finished beef.
We turn off about 50 animals a year, 50 beef animals a year on 80 acres. So without this kind of grazing, I could probably turn off 15. But with this kind of grazing, I can do 4 times that.
Is in extreme drought. While neighboring ranchers struggle to keep their pastures alive, Southwest Farms is running 50 head on 80 acres and thriving.
Before we talk about the solution, we need to understand the real problem. So, why are farmers struggling to survive? Welcome back to another episode of Riding and talking about how we can improve agriculture through regenerative farming. So, why are so many farmers struggling? Is it their fault? Or are they being squeezed by corporations and billionaires? Honestly, I think it's both. But let me explain. The first problem is corporate control. A handful of large corporations owns machinery companies, fertilizer companies, seed companies, supplement producers. But they also own the companies that buy the produce, so they influence both sides. They set the price of equipment, inputs, and the grain, vegetables, or meat farmers sell. Farmers are being squeezed from both directions. But our second problem is dependency. Here's the uncomfortable question. Why are farmers so dependent on buying fertilizers, sprays, and supplements in the first place? This is where farmers share part of the responsibility. Not because they're stupid and not because they want this system, but because many traditional farming skills were lost over the past decades. We moved toward systems that depend entirely on artificial inputs. However, many farmers are now rediscovering what we once mastered for centuries. And that brings us back to regenerative farming. Let's go back about 70 years. Cattle were on pasture. They fertilized the soil naturally. Farms had diverse crops. Chickens scratched the soil and ate pests. Fields weren't endless monocultures. Each farm functioned like a small ecosystem. Now imagine separating everything. Animals in one place, chickens in a coop, corn on massive fields miles away. Now animals need imported feed, plants need artificial fertilizer, and pests require chemical sprays. At first glance, it looks more efficient, more control, exact rations, precise fertilization. It feels like we are doing better than nature. But think again, are we? Cattle now require more supplements, often fed cheap commercial feed for faster weight gain. Chickens concentrated in tight spaces. Disease spreads easily. And the fields? No animals grazing, no scratching, just tractors and artificial fertilizers. Energy drinks falling from the sky. But when artificial fertilizers were first introduced, they were used alongside animals and manure. Then someone thought, why not remove animals completely? Yes, it works, but it isn't sustainable. What happens to the soil? Without grazing, without plant diversity, without nitrogen-fixing species, soil life declines. Microorganisms starve, they die. The soil life dies, soil turns into dirt. And crops? They don't grow in dirt. So what do? Add more fertilizers, more supplements, more chemicals to replace what nature used to provide for free. But now we eat food grown in lifeless soil. And we wonder why health problems are arising. That soil also doesn't hold moisture, so when drought comes, crops fail. That soil doesn't drain properly, so when heavy rain comes, fields flood. Many of these problems can be reduced dramatically with regenerative principles. Now, this is not about backyard gardening. I'm not here to judge anyone, and this is not about small backyard garden tricks. This is about producing massive amounts of food for a growing population, without going broke, without spending everything on chemicals, without destroying the soil that feeds us. Regenerative farming can increase resilience, lower input costs, improve soil health, and increase long-term productivity. And it also produces more per hectare than conventional systems, when designed properly, of course. With climate instability increasing, I truly believe that in a few decades, this may be the only way we can sustainably feed ourselves. This was my introduction to regenerative farming. Let me know your experience in the comments. And if you want deeper videos on topics like doubling orchards' profit, increasing yields naturally, or designing profitable regenerative systems, make sure to subscribe and check out the other videos on the channel.